here. So Todd Duncan's been a friend, a mentor, somebody who I've been able to rely upon over the years, as kind of that beacon of truth, that lighthouse, I call it, that beacon of truth going forward. So let me just read to you the bio from his website. The world's leading authority on trust, Todd Duncan is the founder and CEO of the Duncan Group, the most sought after coaching, training, and events company for high-performing sales professionals, a two-time New York Times bestselling author with over 17 books, and was a top 1% loan originator, financing over 5,900 transactions in 12 years. After surviving the worst market of the top mortgage loan officer, Todd came out on top to share his proven method of his New York Times best-selling book, High Trust Selling. Todd has taught more than 100,000 mortgage lenders and real estate agents these principles across the country. So like I said, Todd has been a friend and a mentor of mine for years. And his principles, when he wrote High Trust Selling, which that book now is 20, 21, 22 years old, still follow today. I'm blessed to be a coach for Todd as well. And through that, we teach literally from the book, High Trust Selling. So Todd is not able to be with us between 8:30 to 9 o'clock. He will be with us from 9 o'clock to 9:30. He's got a tight time frame today. So he did a special recording just for us that I'm going to play here in just a quick second. Now, because he's going to be popping on at 9 o'clock, please bring your questions, get ready with your questions, because he's going to be firing answers to your questions between 9 to 9:30. So, and it truly is a treat to have Todd with us. He is one of the most sought after speakers and trainers in the mortgage and real estate community. So to that end, I'm going to share my screen, and please mute yourself. Okay. Lindsay, give me a thumbs up when the sound turns on here. You can see this, right? Okay.
Hey everybody, it's Todd Duncan. Great to be with you on this awesome CMA-A-Day challenge. Gratitude to Walt Schultz and all of his LOs, and certainly to the hundreds of realtors showing up for this exciting journey in this exciting market that we're in. I'm going to bring to the conversation today three things that I think are
We lost the sound, Walt.
now in this market, and really any market, but this market particularly.
I muted myself.
To continue to push the envelope, to continue to build business, continue to plant the seeds that are necessary for the harvest that we know is coming, given the changes in the economy and things along those lines, which I will get into. But before I do that, I just need you all to know that at 23, I was a real estate broker and a licensed lender. I chose the lending route. I chose partnering with real estate agents. And in 11 years, we closed 5,962 real estate financing transactions. And so I come to this having started a company that was focused on then helping lenders and agents develop these exciting partnerships together. And it's with that kind of background and 30 years of teaching literally hundreds of thousands of lenders and agents around the globe, actually, how to do business well. So I'm excited about this journey. Get your pens ready to go. And I'm going to give you three things. You can write them down right now. 1/2 of a page per thing. Mindset's number 1. Number 2 is relationship versus transaction. And number 3 is residual versus earned. So 1/2 a page for each of those topics. And let's begin with mindset. So I need you to know that when I started doing loans, the market was in the tank, the deepest tank since the Great Depression, and interest rates were hovering around 18, 19%. Prime was 20, 21%. Unemployment was off the grid. Life was hard. Everybody thought the sky was falling, that nobody would be buying or selling real estate. And thankfully, I had a lot of mindset training from my grandmother, not my mother, but my grandmother. She was always full of positivity. And one of the things that she told me early in my life was that if I chose positivity over pessimism, optimism over pessimism, I would be more successful in life. And she bought me a book called Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. And so I developed at the age of 23 a mindset management system. It began with this: if everybody's thinking the market is bad, my question to myself is, what is good about this market? I just reframed it. And what I learned very early on is the people that think the market is bad have bad results, and the people that think the market is good have good results. It became kind of that simple line in the sand. One of the quotes that I took from this book that my grandmother bought me called Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude was this idea that there's very little difference between, and let me make this personal about you guys, there's very little difference between successful realtors and unsuccessful realtors, or successful lenders and unsuccessful lenders. But the little difference makes the big difference. The little difference is attitude, and the big difference is whether it's positive or not. And so the mindset has to be, what's good about this market? Well, what's good about this market is if your skills are good, you have less competition than you had a year ago. What's good about this market, like any market, is it resettles, right? We're going to get a resettling of seller expectations and buyer acceptance of the current interest rate market. And those things are going to become normal. And then the market will turn, and in 2024 and 2025, by all forecasts I can see, are going to be good, healthy markets. This year's a good market, even though rates are high, but it's a mindset, because the rates are only high now until about 2 years from now, when we refinance every customer that we're getting into real estate right now. And the cost of waiting is usually more than the cost of doing and the cost of acting. That's a mindset, right? I had a button made up when I was 23 that said, rumor has it we're in a recession, I'm not participating. And the idea behind that was just this simple kind of thought that if everybody else is negative, if everybody else is pessimistic, why don't I just be optimistic? It was really that straightforward and that simple. So that boded very, very well. One of the books that I really have used for my entire life, and is probably the backdrop of the mindset that we're talking about right now, is the idea of abundance instead of scarcity. And that book is called Acres of Diamonds. It was written by Russell Conwell. He was a Baptist preacher and kind of an observer of life. And the theme of the book, if I just took it down to an essential thought, is that you don't need to look elsewhere for business. The idea is in Acres of Diamonds that you have a wealth, a treasure trove of opportunity right under your feet. And the way that we take that metaphor and apply it is every single person that you know right now. Every single person you know right now is a gateway to the next person you need to know. Just had a conversation with my friend Bob Bodine, and Bob wrote a book years ago called The Power of Who. And I love the title, but I love the subtitle. And the subtitle said, you already know everybody you need to know. So if you already know everybody you need to know, what is the mindset you would have in a market that can be interpreted as tough and difficult and hard? Well, the mindset is, if I already know everybody I need to know, I just need to connect with who I know, and they're going to connect me with who I need to know. And that becomes kind of the operating system of any market, because let's face it, there's a massively difference in having a referral and having a lead. If I have a lead, I have lower conversion rate to contract. If I have a referral, I have higher conversion rate to contract. And so when I think about mindset, one of the things I'll say is that it really is never the market that determines our success. It is always our mindset in that market. If there's going to be 4.4 million homes sold in 2023, the only question is, how many do you need to make your math, your business plan, and your income goals work? And partnering with a great lender and having a lender have your back and have you guys operate as you are in symphony with one another. That's one of the messages that I'll be sending to you today. But the other thing I think is the idea between hard and easy, right? Hard markets are hard, easy markets are hard. The difference is hard markets being hard. It's hard now because it may be harder than 2 years ago to find business. That Easy markets are hard because 2 years ago, we didn't have to do a lot of prospecting. Business was just happening because we had a really positive and conducive rate environment, and we had an escalating value scenario with market analysis. Properties were going up and people were multiple offers. And while that still exists in some markets, it's not, every single day that we're seeing that in all markets, but it doesn't matter. In any market, buyers buy and sellers sell. Okay, and so when we think about mindset and we think about, what could really give me a boost in confidence, well, it would be there's enough business for me right now. There's enough business for me to get right now. There's enough business to do right now to make my income goals work. I can reject negativity. I can reject pessimism. I can be opportunistic and optimistic. And if I can be opportunistic and optimistic, then that is the 1-2 punch that the market needs right now. So what's good about this? Less competition. What's good about this? We have a market that's resettling and leveling out a little bit. We have plenty of people buying homes and plenty of people selling homes. And so if we have all that going on and we understand the next two things that I'm going to talk about, you can see how mindset matters, right? And so I recommend that you begin your mindset journey every single morning. If it's not something that you do routinely in the morning, and you really get your mind focused on the positive opportunities of the day and speak, lovingly and graciously to yourself about who you are and what you want and what your expectations are for the day. If you do all of that, then you enter the day positive. And if you don't do that, first time you get whacked, any moment of the day, in the first hour or two or three, it kind of unsettles you and takes you off track for the day. So work on mindset. And then part of mindset is don't make any excuses. David Schwartz wrote a book in 1956 called The Magic of Thinking Big. I have 2 paperback copies of that, and I have the original manuscript that he wrote. And his second chapter was Be Careful of Excusitis. And excusitis is simply making up reasons why you can't succeed right. And, at the end of the day, excuses are only an element of procrastination. And it's interesting that when you do what you are making an excuse for, you no longer have an excuse for it. When you make a call through even having an excuse for earlier or yesterday why you didn't make a call, and you make that call, your mindset gets enhanced. When you don't make the call and you should make the call, your mindset gets compromised. And so this mindset piece, 1/3 of our 30 minutes together, this mindset piece, super critical. Let's pop down to the second piece. I have a hat here, it says relationships and then a line and transactions. When I was a brand new loan originator, I had a mentor who told me that I had to make a decision at the start of my career. He said, you can either focus on transactions or you can focus on relationships. And I'm scratching my head because I'm new. I don't really fully grasp what he's saying. I know that I have a 90-day guarantee and then I will be straight commission on day 91. I'm a little bit, concerned about that. Graduate from college, don't have a lot of cash reserves, but I'm paying attention to a guy because I saw him do something in the market that I had not done in my first 2 weeks of being a professional mortgage originator. He worked by appointment only. And it was very interesting because when I saw him do what I hadn't done, I simply called him. I believe that people that are successful will share why they're successful and how they became successful. I think that somebody helped my mentor out at some point in his career. And I think that once you are mentored, you feel a responsibility, a social kind of obligation to help other people out. But you don't have to help everybody. And John chose to help me because he saw fire in my belly, saw desire in my heart. I was humble, I was hungry, and I wanted to learn, right? And so he said, here's the deal. Transactions will make you a living. Relationships will make you a fortune. And when we dug pretty deep into that, it started to get me thinking about this idea of if I already know a buyer, maybe the buyer knows another buyer. If I already know a seller, maybe the seller knows a seller. You might be scratching your head going like, that's obvious, Todd. Well, of course it's obvious, but what we know right now after surveying over 45,000 realtors and lenders is that only 5% of real estate agents and lenders have an active referral by design plan. So I invented when I was a loan officer, something that attracted realtors to want to do business with me. It is called even today, the Consumer Referral Program. The Consumer Referral Program is a program that I brought to agents to whom I had been referred, and it was designed to bring those agents, buyers and sellers, to have conversations with so they could sell real estate to or for or both. And if you were interested in that, it would require a meeting with me in which I would sit down and spend 30 to 45 quality minutes with you and conduct what is called the high trust interview. And the high trust interview was designed to learn why you want to succeed. It was designed to allow me to know what your expectations are during a transaction in process. How can I best serve you? What are the needs that you have? And it was also designed to make sure that I understood some of your dreams and goals, and even how many leads and referrals you were losing by having a lost referrals conversation. If you've never had that conversation with a lender, have that conversation, because it'll help you understand why we're not getting as much business as we should. And it has a lot to do with, trust and connection. But the more common phrase would be follow-up. But here's the challenge. If you don't have trust and connection, follow-up creates call reluctance. If you have trust and connection, follow-up becomes a joy and a professional responsibility. So what I did is I used this consumer referral program, and how it really worked was essentially you refer me to somebody who needs real estate financing. And what I will do, unlike most lenders, is I will incubate that referral for as long as it takes until they're ready to buy, sell, or both. And what I told my real estate agents is the time to refer is the first time you meet the buyer. It doesn't matter if they're going to buy a property this weekend or in 6 months. What I wanted to do is I wanted to become a referral top of funnel manager. And so I built a system that was called the SIT system, S-I-T, stay in touch. And any buyer that we had a conversation with that was going to go into contract within 90 days, we talked to every single week and cross-sold you and made sure we kept them in play. And if they were going to buy outside of 90 days, but before 180 days, we talked to them every other week. If they were going to buy in the third 3 months, so that would be 181 days, 270, we would talk to them every 21 days. And outside of that, if they were going to buy in 270 days, all the way up to 2 years, then we talked to them once a month. And our goal was to take all of those buyers and make sure that they never left you. So it's a retention system that really allows you to let us.
This lender on here has a really great follow-up plan.
Right. We also know that about 88% of real estate agents and lenders report that the two worst places in a transaction that they actually follow up is before the transaction begins. So it's a referral, but not yet a contract. And then after the contract closes. Okay, so we look at that and we say, okay, how good are we at following up before we go live with the contract and after that contract closes? Well, the stats tell us that we're not very good. And yet, this is interesting, right? We have longer cycles right now in today's market. This month, right now, we have longer cycles between when a borrower is found and talk with a lender and when they ultimately go into contract. Well, if we have longer cycles, then we must nurture those people or we're going to lose them. And so it makes no sense to bring business in. This is why I chose to be a partner with my real estate agents. I had 13, to be a partner with those 13 real estate agents. And what that meant was I had to play a role to help you and I win together. The role that my team and I played is we stayed in touch on your behalf. So now what that invented is what I call today the circle of cash flow. And the circle of cash flow is super simple. put a seller in the middle of the circle of cash flow and ask the seller who he and or she or they know, right? Who is their financial planner? Who is their CPA? Who is their bank? Who is their employer? Who is this? Who is that, right? And the lender should be in partnership with you doing this, because the lender can then, during the transaction, talk to the financial advisor, make sure the couple is insured the right way, make sure that they're taking advantage of any tax opportunities they have through real estate acquisition, make sure that we know if a buyer and a co-buyer are executives in a company and they each lead 30 people, that we have 60 potential buyers and sellers right in there, right? And what we know is that during a transaction, there are 12 specific opportunities where the lender can ask for referrals based on customer sat scores, based on interactivity, based on milestone and status updates, based on a 7-day call, a mid-process call, a 3-day pre-closing call, a 24-hour post-closing call, a 7-day post-closing, a 30-day, 180-day, and a 365-day post-closing call. This is the consumer referral program, and it spins out consumers. But if I'm not in touch, I'm out of touch. And if I'm out of touch, then I got to prospect hard. If I'm in touch, then I get to prospect easy. Conversion goes up. When you have a third-party referral that says, you know what? Jane Johnson is the best real estate agent on the planet. You are in such good hands with her and her team. And the reason she so confidently recommended me as your lending partner is because we help people make informed choices, smart decisions, and we incorporate their mortgage into their long and short-term financial and investment goals and their payment and equity and cash flow objectives. And then we help them manage that mortgage for the rest of their life, so the mortgage works for them instead of them working for it. That's the kind of stuff we should have going on.
No, I haven't watched it yet.
Just one example. So one of my real estate agents referred me to a physician. We did the loan for the physician, and about 2 weeks after, he was playing golf with a buddy of his, and the buddy asked him, how did the home purchase go? And he said it was absolutely flawless. The lender, this guy named Todd Duncan, he and his team were unbelievable. In fact, you know, you should talk to him about mortgage services for your bank. And I go, wow. And so the doctor calls me and he says, I just played golf with Tom Johnson, and Tom's the president of El Dorado Bank. They've got like 3,000 depositors and they don't do real estate loans. So think about this. So I get introduced to the president of a bank, and then Debbie, my real estate agent who referred me to the physician, is now the beneficiary of 317 transactions in the next 10 years. That's 31 transactions a year that she would have never gotten had we not cross-sold and done a good job for Tom to get an audience with the president. I went on to do this for hospitals and associations and so on and so forth. And in fact, what I'll tell you is that of our nearly 6,000 transactions, 3,000 were direct referrals from the other 3,000. Now, that leads us to the third and final point, residual versus earn. Okay, I'm a big believer that the key to being a successful entrepreneur is you create more and more residual income. What residual income means is money keeps coming in even though you don't have to do the work. And so for me, that was like, there's a point in time where I don't have to bring in new prospects the old fashioned way, right? There's a point in time where everybody that I have done a mortgage for should be contacted regularly, should be dialogued with intentionally, and should be a salesperson for me in the marketplace. So here's what we did. This is huge for you guys. We started paying attention on every mortgage application to what the job titles were for the borrowers. And if we had a manager all the way up to CEO, what we knew is manager meant you managed people. So how many people do you manage? If you're head of sales, we knew that means you manage sales. How many salespeople do you manage? Okay, we went up and up and up and up, all the way to a hospital administrator, a doctor who was the head of administration for a hospital that had 1,700 doctors, nurses, and employees. So when you start looking at the 1003, the mortgage application, you start thinking as a real estate agent about the CMA-A-Day challenge, and you think about like, this is easy, right? If I can do one of these a day, all you have to think about right now is who do I know who knows the people I need to know? Who do I know who knows the people I need to know? Who do I know who knows the people I need to know? Those are the calls you should be making because they don't have a lot of fear attached to them. They have high conversion. They already have implied high trust, less shopping, less negotiation, more retention, and more referrals. So residual income, if 3,000 of my almost 6,000 loans came without traditional prospecting and marketing, I could say that those 3,000 loans are residual income. They're income coming from an already existing asset, which is called your database, which if you treat your database the right way, it becomes a data bank. And if the data is economic, then the bank pays you. So by the time that I was done doing mortgages and started this company, I think our residual income was about $7 out of every 10. And that meant I didn't have to go originate anymore. It just meant I needed to love, my team and I needed to love on the people we'd already served. And so the question is, when you think about residual versus earned, you have to think about wealth modeling. So I have a piece of paper in front of me. We teach this in our High Trust Sales Academy, but for a real estate agent to really start to understand this, let me put this in perspective. It doesn't matter whether this would be a buyer or seller, but let me just pick a number. Let's pick a number that in your career, you have helped 200 sellers or buyers buy or sell real estate or both, okay? So what we teach is a loyalty cycle. So I'll just give you a loyalty cycle of 5 years. What we know in 5 years is if bare minimum, you do an annual real estate review, you're going to be put into place with 6 different questions and then a dream conversation about what they want to do with real estate at some point in the future. Out of those conversations every year, and maybe a couple phone calls on birthdays, anniversaries, or holidays, no automated marketing, it doesn't work anymore. The phone call is the best resource for connection. Let's say you were able to get 4 more transactions. If each transaction side, buy side, sell side, is worth $10,000, then each one of those buyers or sellers in the 5 years is worth $40,000. So if you have 200 of those at $40,000 each, over 5 years, that creates $8 million in revenue. How much of the 8 million would you spend to make it? Would you spend 80 grand? Probably. Okay, would you spend a little bit more, 100, 150, maybe $200,000 to make 8 million bucks? Here's the deal. Only 4% of realtors have a client concierge to actually follow up with buyers and sellers after closing. How long? Forever. And what I want you to understand about residual income is it is there for you, but you won't get it unless you stay in touch. People always laugh when I say, if you want your clients for life, you have to talk to them during their life. So let me tell you the math, and then we'll wrap it up. 3 things we've talked about: mindset, relationship over transaction, and that's a circle of cash flow. Keep them in partnership with you. Moving to residual versus earned income, which is wealth modeling. And then what the LO and you should be able to do together is create more and more cash flow for each other. So if 50% of the almost 6,000, we'll just keep it very simple, is 3,000 loans, okay? 3,000 loans went back to my agents. I had 13. So if you take 3,000 loans divided by 11 years, that's 272 loans per year, divided by 13 agents, was an average of 20 transactions a year each. Okay, so we use that $10,000 mark, you have 20 transactions, my agents are making an extra $200,000 a year through this kind of joint effort to love on our database and keep our clients for life. So my challenge to you is between now and the 24th of July, when the CMA-A-Day challenge is over, is to focus on these 3 things every day. Focus on mindset every day, focus on deepening relationship every day, and focus on creating more and more residual income. And if you do those 3 things, you will be in the top 10% of realtors, you'll be in the top 10% of lenders. Your life will never be the same. Business will be much easier. Cash flow will be much more consistent. and probably much higher as a velocity, which is always good. Who doesn't want to make more money without as much work? And at the end of the day, if you want to dig deeper on our high trust system, we're at toddduncan.com. If you want to stay in touch with me with social, it's Todd Duncan Official on most of the social channels. So thank you all for hosting. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this exciting event. And I think right now we may be going into Q&A. Thanks guys for listening. Thanks for attending. Love y'all very much, even though I don't know y'all, but success is a joy and success happens now.
Without further ado, Mr. Todd Duncan.
What's going on, Walt?
How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. I got motivated by watching that last 10 minutes.
Yeah. You know, you
Hi,
did a great
everybody.
job.
Well, when you've lived it and made it work, and then you've watched the thousands of people that make it work, you have fun teaching.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, as promised, we have Todd on here for the next half hour. What questions do you have? I've got a few, but I wanted to honor you guys first.
And what'd be really cool, there's a reactions button at the bottom, and you can go ahead and just raise your hand, and that way we put you in the queue. We can see your picture and face, and we'll take questions for a half hour. And if it leaks over because it's super good, we'll do that. Whatever you guys want to do, I'm here for you.
So I'll start off with the first question since we don't have one here.
Way to prime the
I
pump.
saw- What's that?
Way to prime the pump.
So I saw a post by Mike Hardy the other day that intrigued me. And so one of your elite coaching clients. And he said, the game and landscape in mortgage banking and real estate is rapidly changing. This world will look very different 12 to 18 months from now. If you know, then you know. Can you share with us what people know or what you know?
Well, I think there's three things happening. One is the traditional buy cycles and list cycles are going to be changing, and you know, the consumer is getting in front of the real estate agent rather than waiting for the real estate agent to connect with them. And so that doesn't mean they're not using an agent. In fact, the data that we have from 3 or 4 different sources tells us that still 81% of transactions are going to involve a real estate agent. And we have that out until like 2026 right now. So we don't worry about that. What we worry about is getting in front of that curve. And so this last piece of earned versus residual income and follow-up has so much to do with what are we doing to court and nurture. And there's a law in high trust selling called the law of incubation. And, you know, it simply states the most profitable relationships mature over time. So that's number one, that's happening. And so that data bank that we talked about, you've got to be very, very seriously engaged on reconnecting there and building that and making sure that you have ownership of those relationships. So that's number one. The second thing that Hardy's talking about is the move from the traditional cycles to not a consumer direct cycle, but a consumer centric cycle. And so real estate agents are going to be more and more reliant on repeat and referral than they are going to be new lead gen, right? And so the traditional marketings of automated marketing and farm marketing and things like that, that stuff's changing, right? And then I think the last thing Mike's talking about is how do lenders and real estate agents partner in real estate? You know, how do we build residual wealth with our real estate agent partners by doing things that are socially driven, like, you know, like opportunity zones and things like that in terms of rehabbing property and flipping and building residual income that way and revenue. But the other thing is just the pure change in the dynamic of what traditionally most realtors have seen as their business model. So that whole thing's, and we're telling elite, as you know, Walt, we're telling elite that you got to be at a spot where 7 out of 10 transactions have nothing to do with a real estate agent, but everything to do with a real estate agent. What we mean by that is 7 out of 10 transactions are going to come as a result of what you are doing as a lender on behalf and with your real estate partner, agent partner, to create this family of legitimate referral business, the referral orbit as it's starting to be referred to. So we're going to move from consumer direct is a concept that doesn't work for the relationship model, too consumer centric. And I guess the thing that Mike has probably learned most in the last 5 years is hopefully what you guys just learned in the last 10 minutes, and that is the economic value of what a dream team looks like. The 200 people I used in that model that are actually sales professionals for your real estate brand. That's the new branding. The new branding is not what you say, what you do, where you are in terms of your local market. None of that matters anymore. What Seth Gooden says, the best marketing is advocacy marketing, which is what other people are saying about you. So we see a pivot, and I'm telling people you have to make this pivot by the end of next year. So by the end of 2024, you have to understand that the greatest sales team you have in the future of real estate is going to be the people you've already served. And they need to become a de facto sales force for you in a very engaged and intentional way. And as I said, most real estate agents don't do that. Most lenders don't either. And so we've got to make that pivot before it's too late. Because if you're relying on traditional referral flow, it's not going to work like it used to.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Leela,
Hi,
go ahead
Leela.
and unmute yourself and ask away.
Hi, thank you all for having me on today. And Todd, that was so great and inspiring, everything that you said. Hope I'm not echoing. I'm in a small room right now.
You sound right. You sound great.
So the question that I have for you is, how do you get your vendor partners on the same page with you? Because I feel like that's my struggle. Like, I'm high prospect, but it seems like a lot of vendor partners I have, they don't prospect the way that I do. So having the balance and getting your partners to understand what your expectations are without, I guess, being crossing any lines to where it's like breaking any rules. How do you get that to happen? Because I feel like that's my struggle.
Yeah. So when you mentioned vendor, there's lots of vendors in a transaction, but are you referring to
like my partners that I work with? Any of the partners I work with, title reps, like I feel like I send out a ton of referrals, but I don't feel like I get enough back in return to where I feel like I'm fed equally. And I know there's rules around, requesting. But how do you get everyone on the same page to where we know that we're all sitting at the same table, helping build each other's business, and it doesn't feel like it's one-sided? Yeah,
I would sit down, and the first thing I would say to all of you, and including obviously you as the person that asked the question, is the idea that if a partner is seen as a vendor, then they're not a partner. And so if I just use the vernacular that, it's interesting when lenders talk about having real estate agents that they are strategically partnered with, because I will always ask, tell me what the strategy looks like, and they won't have a strategy. So we throw these words around that really have no bearing. So what we know right now is 41% of lenders did not renew their license in the last 12 months. And the reason they didn't renew their license is because they're a vendor, and vendors don't have partnership treatment. So what I would do if I were in your shoes is I would sit down with whomever you think is your dream team. Okay. And if you don't have like a confidence in your title company that person should be on your dream team, or lender or insurance or whomever, I would drive the bus. And I think one of the big shifts is the lenders that survive the fallout right now. And make no mistake, the fallout is temporary. The fallout's temporary. I'll digress for just a moment. I have a stat sheet in front of me that last year in America, 5.7 million homes, new and resale, were financed. And that's a big number. This year, it's going to be closer to 5.2 million. And then next year, it's going to start going up to 5.4 million. And by 2025, there's going to be 5.9 million homes in America that are going to be transacted. Okay, that's pre 2021. So my point on that is lenders that typically come and go, vendors are going to be the lenders that will come back in when sales opportunities go up. And by the way, in that same time frame, we're going to go from interest rates third quarter this year at 6%, fourth quarter this year 5.6%, first quarter of next year 5.5%, second quarter of next year 5.3%, third quarter of next year 5.0%, fourth quarter of next year, 4.8. And by the time we get to 2025, 30-year fixed rates are going to be 4.5%. So the lenders that are in business today that believe in partnerships are going to sit down with you and they're going to have a dream team conversation. Because here's the deal: if the realtor plays the violin and the lender plays the trumpet, if they're not playing the right notes at the right time with each other, there's no synchronicity. And if you want conversion to go up as a real estate agent and a lender wants conversion to go up as your lending partner, then you guys have to be in sync, right?
Right,
So
I
then
agree.
you can dictate the rules that you want the wealth team to play by. And you can have those rules short of anything that would break legal laws, which, obviously that's why we have ethics. That's why we have, that whole training as real estate and lending professionals. But the dream team should consist of whoever you call vendors right now to partners, and not economic partners, but at least relationship partners, right? Like, I got your back, you got mine. So when Debbie's able to close 365 more transactions, because as a partner, I get a hold of somebody that owns a bank and that bank doesn't do real estate loans, I can pretty much with Debbie and Debbie pretty much with me, we can run a partnership together, right? And that's why when you understand that high trust selling is make more money in less time with less stress, can't do that with vendors. Okay, you got to move from any realtor who sees somebody in the space as a vendor, that scares me to death, because that tells me that you're not dealing with somebody that understands the professional opportunity. It's usually one way instead of back and forth, right? And I told my agents, man, if I can't make you an extra $300,000 or $400,000 a year, I don't expect anything from you. And that changes everything. That changes the whole vibe of the conversation. And when you sit down and you see the referral mechanics that a lender should be performing on your behalf, and they're not doing that right now, call the shots. You just call the shots. It's your business. It's the lender's opportunity to be presented with what you want, or the title company to be presented with what you want and to accept it or reject it. And sadly, I'll speak to lenders, even though I know title really well too, but most lenders want stuff from you. They want referrals from you. Most lenders don't even know what you like. Like if I were to ask any lender you've given a loan to in the last 3 months, what is, and tell me, is it Lelia?
Lelia.
So tell me what Lelia's 36-month vision is for her real estate business. How many lenders would be able to articulate that? And the answer is like 0. So a partnership would be, well, let me tell you where she wants to be at the end of 2026 and what we're going to focus on for the balance of 2023. And next year is this. And then in 2025, we're going to do this. That's a partnership, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I think you get to take the bull by the horns and you get to decide what you want, but it's got to be in this relationship context, not like a threat. Like, if you want me to refer any more transactions to you, you need to do this. But it should be that you have confidence waking up every day that you really do have a partnership. Because if I got your back as a lender and you got my back as an agent, we can do so much together that we'd never be able to do if we didn't have that partnership. The other thing that's interesting is we asked a question of 11,000, 1,200 lenders. How many of you, and we gave them, let me give you the right one. What percentage of you, here's the question. How many of you know right now the top 3 needs your agent partners have? Okay. What do you think the answer to that was? 6% said they knew the needs. Here's the second question. Do you follow up with your agent partners every week to generate mutually beneficial business development opportunities? That was like down at 4%. So here's all these quote lenders that are at worst a vendor, and at best a vendor that's got a little bit of style, and that's it. So this is wide open territory is what I'm saying. And every realtor should have a dream team. Who's your lender? Who's your title partner? Who's your attorney? Who's your home warranty person? Who's your appraiser? To the extent that you have that, lenders usually choose that. But what is your dream team made of? You know, who are the financial planners on your dream team? Who are the estate planners on your dream team? How do you bring value beyond just the real estate transaction to your customer? You know, how do you stay in touch with them and do an annual real estate review? Like why doesn't every real estate agent, when they close a transaction, and whether it's a listing sold or a purchase completed, why do they not enter into their database ACR, which stands for annual client review, or ARR, which would stand for annual real estate review? Why don't we call the people that we just sold a home to or for and ask them, based on where they are a year in, how they doing, how they feeling, what's their real estate goals and dreams for the next 3 to 5 years, 6 years, 7, 8 years, and 8 years plus? Because if I do that as a lender and they go like, you know what, this is crazy, we just bought a 2-bedroom home and we're now pregnant with triplets. Well, if I know that and the real estate agent doesn't know it, then I get to take the listing back to the agent of my choice. But if the agent that listed that or that sold that property to them in the first place, she's in my dream team, then I'm going to take it right back to her. So we're going to get the listing on the home she sold. We're going to get the sale on the new home that they're going to buy. It could be a double in because the agent's going to find another property she already has listed that's got 5 bedrooms. But if you're not in the storm of that knowledge, then you got people that you've sold real estate to or for that are buying real estate and selling real estate, and you're not part of the deal.
Right.
It's bank account by body count. You know, if it's just one transaction, you get the transaction closed and that's it. That's the dumbest business strategy on the planet. Dumbest. I made $32 million in 19 years from one relationship in Australia. That relationship referred me to 27 other owners of businesses in Australia. I never had to do any prospecting for 19 years in one country because one person believed in our brand so much that he wanted all of his friends and business colleagues and CEOs that were starting businesses and running businesses. That's just one person, $32 million. Take somebody in your orbit, you guys, that runs a company with 2,000 employees. Why wouldn't you be the real estate agent of choice for that person? Because you're not paying attention to the scope of influence outside of the transaction. And you got to understand that. You got to understand the scope of influence is like, that's why it's a job title. Where I got most of my first time home buyers was from a jewelry store in a mall. Think about this for a second. So what are people doing? Well, I did a loan for somebody that was in the family of the guys that owned the jewelry store. Pretty soon it was like, we're doing first time home buyer seminars and people are thinking about getting married. Well, do you have a jeweler? And people are coming into the jewelry store thinking about buying a home. Do you have a lender? You know, you want to put yourself in the way of traffic. And the people that know the people are the people you need to invest in. And I just think, 200 could be from 400, 400 could be 600, 600 could be 1,200. Never stops. But prospecting should be easy, not hard.
Right.
So that's a long answer to a very important question.
Well, thank you. And do you share your SIP plan?
Do I share mine?
Yes.
Yeah, my SIP plan is the one I ran you through as a loan officer. It was 0 to 90, 91 to 180, 181 to 270, and 271 to 365, and then another year. But I'll tell you a story right now. For how long will you accept a no? And that's a big question to all of you, right? So we had a lender that we wanted to do business with. They were one of the largest banks in Florida, and they told us that they did not vendor base their training. Well, remember the law of incubation. The law of incubation says the most profitable relationships mature over time. So where are the two main places to incubate? Before they list, and before they buy, and after they sell, and after they move in. Those are the two biggest parts of incubation, right? And so this lender said we don't vendor base our sales training. Well, so if no to me is just temporary, then I go, I get that. A lot of lenders have that position, and many of them, like you, I'm sure, have your own internal training department. So here's what I'd love to do if you're okay with it. And she goes, well, what? I go, I'd love to send you information every 3 months. Feel free to share it with all of your loan officers. You can even share it with all those loan officers, real estate agents. And if anything ever changes with the company's policy, the first person you'll think about is me. Would that be okay? And she goes like, you would do that? Well, sure. So here's what we did. 500 CDs a month. A quarter, 500 lesson plans a quarter. They had 500 LOs. We would send out the CDs and the lesson plans free. No strings attached. Value, 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 value. 3.5 years later, Ginger calls. She was the one that told me they don't vendor-base their sales training. She goes, you're not going to believe what happened today. And I go, what? And she goes, Mickey announced his retirement. I go, what? So Mickey was head of training. He's the guy that set the policy. So when Mickey retires, Ginger gets promoted to head of training. And she says, you know what? I'm changing that policy. You've invested 3.5 years helping us close billions of dollars of home loans, and we haven't paid you a dime. We're ready to go. First contract, 3.5 years of what? Incubate, 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 incubate. First contract, $859,000. So one could argue, was the 3.5 years worth it? And the answer would be, yeah, like to the tune of $275,000 a year. So you just got to understand this, that no is a default response for most people when asked to go to the next level, to engage. In her case, it wasn't something she made up. It was truth. It was a policy. And listen to this. So today, Ginger and I still do business 28 years later. So that's what we have to be thinking about. And it doesn't matter, how long you've been a real estate professional. It doesn't matter how old you are. I got one guy right now that's on a 7-year retirement plan. He's 60 years old, and by 67, he's going to have enough money. And all he's doing in 7 years is a circle of cash flow. That's all he's doing. So it doesn't matter where you start. It matters how you finish.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we've got a question, Todd.
Turning through daylight here. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, whoever was speaking, go ahead.
Yeah. Who's up?
Okay, I'll just ask the question then, Todd. So we've got one of our lender partners here on the call that was originally part of the crew that set up the CMA-A-Day challenge here. She has a top producing realtor, 30 million a year in production, that doesn't see the value in an annual asset review as a realtor. What would you say to that? And how would you help coach her?
I would say that that's naive. Number one, it borders on, and just forgive me, I'm a pretty straightforward guy, but it borders on stupidity. And the idea of, would you rather shrink your sales times? Would you rather shrink the amount of price pressure in negotiations? Would you rather have to get up and go make money, or know right now that you planted the seeds where it's going to happen anyway? And I would have that lost referrals conversation if I was this lender with this partner. And I would just go, so Walt, you and I can role play this real quick. So Walt, you play the agent. So I'm going to sit down and say, I've got this idea. I think it's going to really resonate with how we do business together as lender and agent. But I want to start with a question I've never asked you before. In the last 12 months, how many transactions did you close as a real estate professional? Buy side, sell sides total.
35.
35. And then I'm going to go, so how many people did you have to talk to get 35 people to list, buy, or both and close?
It's a great question, about 400.
400. So in my head, I come down to 370, and then I go down to 365. And so in my head, I do the quick math and I go, so that means, Walt, that there's 365 buyers and sellers that may have used another agent. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so what percentage, if you want to say really conservative, what percentage of the 365 do you think would have used you if you had a different follow-up plan, a tighter value proposition, and in concert with your lender, you cross-sold each other? What percentage of the 365?
I'd say 10 to 15%.
Let's go on the low side, 10%. So what we're in agreement on is 36 people out of the 365 would have used you, which is one more than you did anyway. So I'm going to assume in the market you're in, and based on the average sales price of the market you're in, that you're going to make $10,000 a buy side and $10,000 a sell side. So let's just keep that one dimensional. So 36 means that there's $360,000 that you didn't make. Would you agree with that?
Yes, that hurts.
And that's your math. That's not my math. That's your math. And think of if your number was 15% or if it was 20%, we're talking about making an extra $720,000 a year. So how I am different than any other lender is I want to do that with you, not for you, but with you. And what that means is we have to engage in annual client reviews together. And we need to figure out where our sellers are a year, 2 years, 3 years. We got to figure out where new people are going to be a year or 2 years or 3 years. We got to figure that piece out. And then we got to incubate in these two areas. And if all we do is do a better job incubating pre and then incubating post, we're going to get those 36 deals. And by the way, what if one of those 36 ran a factory with 2,000 workers? Would you like access to the 2,000 workers? Yeah, so those are all the numbers, right? But let me tell you something. If I were to ask a real estate agent, where are you now? And how far away are you from unadulterated, unabridged financial freedom? Like, how much more do you need for absolute financial freedom? And let's say they say $3 million. Awesome. Do you have a plan for that? No. Awesome. Would you like a plan? Yes. Awesome. Let's sit down together and figure out how your database, my database, and what we do together can spin up that money and get you free in the time frame you want to be free. Because nobody wants to work until their last breath, and nobody wants to work harder when nobody, no matter how old they are, should want to work harder, assuming you have a good work ethic. It's like, it's not how many hours you put in. It's how many hours produce profit. The greatest exchange rate that you guys should ever evaluate is labor in, revenue out. And we measure hourly rate with all of our coaching members. We want to see how much do you make per hour. We don't want to know how many hours you're working. We want this number. Is it $80 an hour? Is it $200 an hour? Is it $1,000 an hour? The highest paid real estate agent that we coach makes $6,000 an hour. The highest paid lender that we coach makes $6,000 an hour, and the highest lender is $4,800 an hour. So why would we not want to do this? It doesn't make any sense. Would you like to make more money? And if the answer is yes, let's not keep doing the same thing. Let's figure out how to unleash a tribe of referrals. That's what this is. That's what this is.
Love it, Todd.
So, yeah.
Got one more question. Is that good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Stephanie Nelson.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, my question is, what questions are you asking your previous buyers in your annual reviews?
So you can go down the path of doing this with your lender, or you can do it on your own. So here's a great question for a realtor to ask in an annual review. Have the dynamics of your family situation changed at all since our conversation last year? That's a great open-ended question. We're pregnant. My mother-in-law is moving in. Sadly, we're getting divorced. All 3 kids are off to college. Our house is too big. That's one question, right? That one question could give you 2 or 3 pieces of data that are super, super important. Do you have a strategic plan for the equity that you've created in the last 36 months? Because most people don't have a strategic plan for their equity. And what your lender should be able to do with you is give you this CMA in a post-closing world. And we should be able to look at the equity that everybody that we help sell homes to or for or both are creating, because that's the biggest asset that 92% of Americans are ever going to have, right? So that would be a question. Do you anticipate any big bonuses in the next year that we might want to invest in real estate? That's a great question. It's just like, right? And then we have this paper. Walt, remind me to give this to you, and you probably already have it. But everybody that's involved in the CMA challenge, let's distribute the Talk Less, Sell More white paper to them. It's 19 pages. It's lender focused and real estate agent focused, and it has a lot of this in there. But you guys can read through this. It's 19 pages, and all it talks about is how do I engage deeper with my clients by asking fewer, more meaningful questions, and how do I then use the answers to those questions to incubate so that whenever something is going to change, then I'm there, top of mind, present in their life. Boom, right? And we have to lead with questions. We have to, if you're not asking questions, you're not creating loyalty. It's that simple, right? I mean, I got book after book on my desk. I just got this one yesterday, Leading with Questions, How Leaders Discover Powerful Answers by Knowing How and What to Ask. That's a great book title, right? Leading with Questions. And most realtors lead with a pitch. They use too many words. Did you know a real estate agent can talk him or herself out of the sale and they don't even know it? So we just need to ask less. We need to ask fewer of the right questions instead of the perfunctory, many of the superficial questions. Because trust, when you have an asset that's called a house, I mean, either buying it, selling it, or both, trust is the most important thing. And the higher the trust, the deeper the relationship. The lower the trust, the more how much it costs matters. So those three questions I just gave you that I think would be super helpful. And then like, based on where you guys are right now, what are your real estate dreams for the next 60 months? What do you want to do next? Because if you ask that, then they tell you. Call us in February. We've launched a new company last month, and we think this thing is going to go nuts. And if it goes the way we're thinking it's going, we're going to have an extra $1 million in February to do something with, and we'd like to do it in real estate. That's an easy close. You don't have to sell them on anything if they love you already. And that's the important point on this whole thing is we're not in selling, we're in solving. Our professional title is we don't sell real estate. We solve people's desired needs with real estate as a solution. So anyway, that's my answer.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
All right.
All right, guys.
You guys are the best. I'm checking out. Thanks,
Hey,
Walt,
Todd.
for the opportunity. Everybody
Thanks a
stay in
lot.
touch. If you want to connect socially, it's Todd Duncan Official. See ya.
Thanks, Todd. All right, guys. Well, so you heard from Todd, and I hope that you gained some value through that. The recording will be in the CMA-A-Day Facebook page, the 2023 CMA-A-Day National Facebook page. And again, I'll reach out to Todd with any questions. I will get out to the lender that invited you to this call. I will get out the Talk Less white paper that Todd wrote. So we'll get that out to you guys, so you guys can read that. It is great. And yeah, if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. When pertaining to a annual asset review, the CMA is a perfect way to be able to introduce that. I would do one every 6 months, especially in this market, if I was a realtor. As being a lender, we do an annual asset review with all of our clients, and we are now implementing a 6-month review as well. So yeah, and of course we go over numbers and everything else. And so we're talking to clients about debt consolidations. We're talking to clients about, if we can save some extra money from your budget on a monthly basis, what can you do with that? We're referring out to financial planners and such. One thing that it was an epiphany for me this last week, I had never asked the realtor that referred the transaction to us to let them know that we're doing the annual asset review, and ask them if they wanted to do a CMA. So that was on my, it was wrong on my side. We're now implementing and asking the realtor now every month hey, you refer this client to us, we close them. And here's a great opportunity to do a CMA for one of our past clients that we have in conjunction together. So that's how I'd be coaching as well. That's how I coach our real estate agents, our partners. And then, of course, that question from the lender that asked that question earlier, that's how I would coach as well. So I think it's a great opportunity to be able to get reconnected back with your clients. As Todd talks about, getting reconnected with your clients is going to be key in moving forward in the next 12 to 18 months. So thank the lender that invited you. Thank you guys. Have an awesome day, and we will see you next week. We've got Laura Gillot, the #1 realtor in Oregon. Check her out. She is in a little town in Oregon, 11 in Oregon. I don't know, there's like 8,000-9,000 people in Lebanon, and she is the #1 real estate agent in Oregon. She specializes really with client events, and unlike any realtor that I've ever seen, she does more client events, hence she's #1. So we're going to hear from her next week. Can't wait to see you guys all then. Have an awesome week. We'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.